What's going on, everybody? We are less than 1 month away from the NFL draft, and we haven't heard much from the Minnesota Vikings. Still wondering what's going on with Za'Darious Smith, Dalvin Cook, and Dannielle Hunter. Haven't signed anybody the last couple of days, and that generally happens after the first wave of free agency. Oh, the Vikings still got these decisions to make. And are they positioning themselves to make a big move on draft night? At some point, you can't just sit back and wait for the world to come to you. Sometimes you have to be aggressive. Like Brian Flores said in his news conference, I'm an aggressive style defensive coordinator. And I think that the Vikings are positioning themselves to be aggressive on draft night. And I believe they are going to make a big splash and trade up to get their next franchise quarterback. And frankly, I'm here for it. I am happy for it. Why didn't they trade Dalvin Cook yet? Why haven't they traded Za'Darious Smith or cut Za'Darious Smith when now they've got $5 extra guaranteed $1 million in his contract that they would have to eat as dead cap hit if they were to cut him? Why haven't they figured out Dannielle Hunter's situation yet? Could they be trade pieces? Possibly. Maybe they do extend or trade or sign one of these players ahead of time. But I think the Vikings have finally said to themselves, this is the time to finally get that franchise quarterback. They had an opportunity to extend Kirk Cousins. They offered him a 1-year deal. He wanted 2. They said, all right, we'll sit tight. That ought to tell you something. That ought to tell you that they like him, but they don't love him, and they're ready to find their own guy. That ought to tell you that they are looking to have a quarterback on a rookie scale contract. And it ought to tell you that they're ready to move in a different direction. Oh, sure. What's JJ going to do if he doesn't have Kirk Cousins throwing him the ball? Well, instead of 1,800 yards, he'll probably have somewhere between 1,200 and 1,400 yards. Oh, wow. For me, I'm kind of tired of hearing about how this is not the year to go up and get a franchise quarterback. We only have 5 draft picks, and next year's draft class is going to be better. How many years have we been saying that next year's draft class is going to be better? A lot. How many times have we said, well, we have other needs on our team that we should be addressing first before we address the quarterback position? A lot. One more time. It wasn't Kirk Cousins' fault that we lost that playoff game. Just like it wasn't Alex Smith's fault that the Chiefs had gone to the playoffs 5 consecutive years, but had tapped out at the divisional round of the playoffs. And, oh, by the way, who have gone no shorter than the AFC Championship game after they got their new quarterback. Granted, that doesn't happen very often. It was a miracle. They struck gold. But it's the concept of understanding that you've tapped out as far as you can get with the quarterback that you have. Not saying he's the problem. As I've always said, he's not the problem. It's also not the solution. And I think the Vikings are ready to make this move. And I believe their target is Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson just looked really good in his pro day, throwing against absolutely nothing. And okay, great. Everybody looks good under pristine conditions. We all understand that. And I've heard left and right about how Anthony Richardson's not an accurate passer. This is why you hired Kevin O'Connell, to be an offensive coach that has the ability to draft the next quarterback, whoever that may be. That's what you brought him in here. You brought him in here to see what he could get out of Kirk Cousins. And he got more out of Kirk Cousins than Mike Zimmer ever did in the plethora of offensive coordinators that he went through. But he also saw, all right, this is the limit. I think they're going to trade up. I want the Vikings to go get their guy. And I think they're preparing themselves, moving all their chess pieces around to make a big splash. And you know what? It might work and it might not work. But at least you're doing something different. At least you are doing something, but being content with being in the middle. Being in the middle means you win 7 to 10 games. Yes, they won 13, a lot of close games, all that good stuff. But let's call it for what it is. The last year of Mike Zimmer, they went 8-9, and they had a whole bunch of close losses. This year, they went 13-3 and had a whole bunch of close wins. Realistically, both seasons, they were about a 9, 10, maybe an 11-win team. 1 year they underachieved, 1 year they overachieved. You're either going to just miss the playoffs or just get eliminated in the wild card round. And I'm glad that it's starting to look like they are not content with that anymore. And yes, there are going to be some growing pains. That's life in the big city. And you know what? You might miss on a guy. But why do we always talk about what could go wrong and not about what could go right? Yeah, you could trade a bunch of picks and get an Anthony Richardson or a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young, and they might bust. They also might be good. And here's another one. They also might be great. Never going to know until you find out. Never going to win the lottery unless you buy a ticket. Use whatever cliche you want to use. But at some point, you got to take a chance because otherwise you're just spinning your wheels. You got contracts that need to be signed for Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Christian Darrisaw in particular. You signed a bunch of guys to a bunch of 1-year deals. At some point, you need to take a chance on a rookie quarterback. And with all due respect to Will Levis, I'm really not interested in him. Yeah, if he fell to, say, picks 13 to 16 and you had to trade up 8 spots to get a Will Levis, okay, I'm okay with that. But Will Levis kind of reminds me of Kirk Cousins. Very high floor. But I think Anthony Richardson has a much higher ceiling than anybody in this draft. And that includes Stroud and Young. That's the guy I want the Vikings to get. And that's the guy I think that they're going after. Yeah, we sent a whole bunch of guys to Will Levis's pro day, and we only sent one guy to Anthony Richardson. Call that a smokescreen. You don't show the world that you're interested in this guy by sending absolutely everybody. No, we send one guy, make it look like, oh, you're not all that interested. Maybe, maybe not. That's the fun thing about the NFL draft and free agency is all of it's smoke screens right now, and that's fine. For me, it's that time. No, I don't want to hear about how next year we'll have more picks because you know what we'll say next year? Well, we went back to the playoffs and it was the defense or it was the offensive line or we didn't have a number 2 wide receiver. So let's sign up Kirk Cousins again. And then what are you going to say? Well, it's going to cost too much to move up into the top 2 or 3 picks to get somebody like Caleb Williams, for example. And then you'll have the same excuses again. It's not time to do it. It's never time to do it. Just do it. Move up, get your guy. And being that Kirk Cousins will probably be here this year, let him sit behind Kirk Cousins for 1 year. Let him be tutelage by Kevin O'Connell and turn it over to him in 2024. Take your dead cap hit of $28.5 million for Kirk Cousins and move on from there. If it doesn't work, you try again. Oh, well, we won't have those picks in those years. So what? You'll find a way. I don't think we're just going to sit and wait for the draft to come to us. I think Kwesi is going to take the Brian Flores approach, and he's going to be aggressive. Last year, kind of sit and waited, traded back, accumulated picks, wanted to get some value because of where the team was and what direction they were going to head in for the 2022 season. I think this time is full tank, pedal to the metal. I like Anthony Richardson the most because I believe he has the most upside. No, he's not the most pro-ready, but again, that's why you hired a coach, to develop a quarterback. And you know what? It's long overdue. It is long overdue. And that's not Kirk Cousins' hate. I'd be saying the same thing if our quarterback was Dak Prescott or Derek Carr or Jared Goff, even if it was Lamar. I'd say, hey, good, not great, market value. Now, let's move off of that. Let's get a guy that's ours. Let's get a guy that we drafted, that we developed, not some retread from somebody else. And I think Kwesi, Kevin O'Connell, yeah, I think that that's their mindset too. Tell me what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. And for now, Skol. To the next episode.